Is there a perfect storm of control brewing against society? It's clear that the government would like to control our culture. They use social media and other devices against us, using our own psychology against us. But is the RFID chip the final piece of the puzzle?
Yeah, I get it. It's people wanting to have to carry less clutter around with them. So I suppose in a sense it's people being lazier and wanting have to remember less because they've always got a chip in them that can do everything, can pay for everything, can let them in and out their house, can. So I get why some people are
I'm waiting for you
interested.
to get to the bad bit. That all sounds marvellous. Let's do
does,
that.
But then, the bad bit is if you're RFID, all RFID chips, and your government then decides that they don't like you for some reason and classifies you as a terrorist, and then twitches your chip off, and then you've got no bank account, no money, you can't get in and out your house.
Yeah, that doesn't sound as good. I don't like that bit as much. But all the other stuff you said just sounds great. So I come at this, and I'm going to come at this really as devil's advocate, because I think you see a lot of YouTube videos about RFID chips, and they just say they're evil. And let's actually be fair. RFID chip implants, normally in the palm of your hand, just there are parts of it that I'm very excited about. Parts of it I'm not so much. So if you are new to our channel, though, please like and subscribe, hit that bell notification so you see all our new videos pop up. It really does help us out.
Regardless about what you believe the true motivations are, RFID chips are being talked about as a method of tracking people who have had the vaccine. They are being talked about from a medical point of view as being really that vital piece of the technology to help us fight COVID.
Yes, but the real problem I think comes is not in so much the tracking now for coronavirus, it's whether the governments will then relinquish those track and trace powers or whether they'll keep those powers and just see if the population will keep providing information for them.
I think if anything history tells us is that when a government gets a new power, it's more than willing to then let it go again when it's convenient. Wait, was that the other way around? I think it's the other way around, isn't it? Sorry, that when they get a new power, they're not even remotely willing to let it go
again. They will never relinquish that new power.
No.
So I'm very anxious to give up all of our freedoms.
Particularly if your medical information is basically stored on this palm of your hand thing. Companies, we're already trying to keep our medical information out of companies' hands, like insurers and things like this. If my insurance company knows every bit of medical information about me, and I have a history of mental health, or something, I got depression once when I was 18, that'll put my premiums up my whole life. It's not a good thing. We don't want this information on computers as it is. Never mind carrying it around. They can blip it whenever they like and read your medical. Imagine you go for a job interview and they go, we'll just scan that first, and just like, oh, that's your medical history. Yeah, that's interesting. Let's just go through your entire medical history. Your cholesterol's a bit high.
I imagine for GDPR and all the other similar legislation in different countries, you will be able to select what types of information is stored on that RFID chip. I think now you can control it. I think the early ones you have to program like off of a smartphone or something, but I think the later sort of ones that they're now doing. I mean, Sweden's massive. Have you noticed in Sweden a lot of the young are getting?
Since COVID's kicked off, there's 4,000 people registered to have these chips. Well, 4,000 people have actually had these chips implanted just since the lockdown.
Yep.
Sweden are really, they're really up for this. Some of the big companies, big players, are all Swedish companies. There's a company called Biohacks that we'll talk about a bit later. They're a Swedish company, so they're taking both hands on this technology. I don't want to go into a big debate about COVID, but that is what sort of made it in the news a lot at the moment. This RFID chip thing, but I don't even really massively see the benefits of the RFID chip in tracking it. Computers work well enough now as well, and they could do it through your phone. Why do they need to implant anything into your
RFID
body?
chip? Probably not even that good for tracking purposes for coronavirus anyway, because it's a near communications radio frequency device, which means you have to be within, I don't know, a meter of a reader or possibly even closer for it to even exchange information with a reader. Okay. How's an RFID chip gonna track you unless it's like linked to your GPS on your phone and your phone's doing the real tracking, because that's
But I would
actually
say, mate,
tracking you all the time anyway.
I would say every shop door you go through, or every door you go through, the technology already exists. RFID chips are what sets off the beep 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 when you leave a shop.
Actually, that's a good point. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that's quite scary with RFID chip and this technology is that this isn't a conspiracy theory. The technology exists. We could do this tomorrow. They could implant us all tomorrow and just reprogram the the pin machines at the cash point, and it would work immediately. There's no massive infrastructure change that needs to happen. It'll just happen. And we could turn into a cashless society tomorrow.
We could potentially, yes.
So you tell me why that's not a good thing then? Because I actually think we're already there. I genuinely think this wouldn't make much difference. But
why? Because you don't want every transaction digitally traced by your government.
Almost all my transactions are digitally traced already. This is my point. Because I use my debit card a lot because I'm a fool. I mean, I'm not buying anything dodgy there, mate.
Well, no, I know, but still, everybody. So every company that you've agreed to marketing with is building up a profile of you online and targeting you with advertising to make you spend on their products based on all the information that you willingly give to them.
Yeah, they already do it. Go on your Facebook account.
I'd rather give them as little as possible to go on. And keep cash as an option, because I don't like this idea of you having an online digital profile from everything you've ever purchased or browsed online or this, that, the other. And I know they're already doing it, and that's why really you should have a VPN service blocking your internet provider from seeing what you view online. It's why you should have you should try and pay for things in cash, so that again you're not your transactions don't show up on your on anything as to what you're purchasing. It makes it much harder. You're much more of a mystery person than a lot of the people there online.
See, this is the problem, is that I'm lazy.
Heavily because of it.
Because I'm lazy, I don't have a VPN service. I do buy almost everything through my debit card because I very rarely ever have cash in my pocket anymore. And maybe I am a fool for that. But I know that companies like Facebook are tracking everything I do because I can see by the advertising that comes up. As you really think that I search for something for my wife? I searched for underwear present for my wife on Amazon, and then next thing I know, there's a load of underwear adverts on Facebook or coming through my messenger, and I'm like, they're not connected. Amazon and Facebook aren't connected, other than the fact that it's in my phone. So my phone is programmed to look at that bit of information and connect it to that bit of information, and then sell it to Facebook.
You don't think that these businesses are selling your data to each other?
No, that's my point. They shouldn't be.
Well, they are. That's why data became the highest value commodity in the world, surpassing oil, gold, and everything else back in 2017.
Generally think that
the
really
biggest companies in the world are the big data companies: Facebook, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple. Then they
thing is, I always look at
sell your data.
I'm always interested by the people you may know list on Facebook. I think that tells you so much about what Facebook is actually doing on your phone. You haven't given it permission to. And one of my manager popped up on my people you may know on Facebook. And I'm like, how the hell does it know I know this woman? Because she's not a contact on my phone. If she was a contact on my phone, that'd be bad enough, because I have not given Facebook permission to access my contacts. So that'd be bad enough. The only thing I can think of is it's IDing that me and this woman are in the same building at the same time regularly.
Yes.
By tracking me.
By tracking your location.
Yeah. Because the phone number wasn't in my phone. It was I had a work phone. It was separate. So it was, and that's Big Brother. That is but that's happening already. And unless you want to come off Facebook, you can't do anything about it.
Probably the entire history since you've had a mobile phone for the last 5 to 10 years is probably available to somebody if they want to look into you at GCHQ.
Right, so let's go on to the bit like that. Most people hate the idea of having an RFID chip or anything inserted into their bodies, right?
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. So how are they going to do it? How are they going to talk us into it? And for me, it is they'll make it as easy as humanly possible.
Wow.
They'll make it so easy for you to have it and so difficult for you not to have it that we'll all go, ooh, that's great. like they
Yeah.
did with mobile phones, and like
Yeah,
they do
that's
with these
exactly
other
how they'll
things.
do it. You know, who knows? They might even create a global pandemic even to enforce it upon us.
Well, they haven't got that far yet, but you never know. This is the thing, though, with that theory about the global pandemic and enforcing it on us. I think they could have done it already. What are they waiting for? You know what I mean?
I don't know.
It's like,
You don't know what they have to. What, you know, if there is some kind of plan at a high level of like the world's most affluent people to create one world government and to get us all RFID chipped, as some of the the conspiracies say that that's the end game.
Oh mate, I just thought of how they could. It just occurred to me.
Go
on. Right. So this is how you do it. If you're gonna get a bunch of people to do something they really, really don't want to do, you have a global pandemic and you lock the country down for 4 months and make that 4 months miserable.
Yep.
You then give them a taste of freedom again.
Yep.
Then you have a second spike.
Yep.
And basically say either we lock it down or you all have to have an RFID chip inserted in you.
So we can.
And a lot of people will go, I'm
Yeah.
not getting locked down again. That was awful. Can I please have an RFID chip?
And then everything
that'll be it.
then on's tracked and traced, and they'll never be able to probably. Well, you could. That's the other thing I thought of as well. Actually, that's about a downside health-wise. If somebody wants to steal your identity, they're just going to cut the chip out your hand, and then you're going to end up with people slicing your hand apart to get at your chip.
I've actually think they've thought of that, because I think a lot of them have seen like Demolition Man, where he cuts his hand off and he gets through all the thing, or every movie ever where they cut a hand off and they go beep and through the screw things. Apparently, if you take them out, they'll stop working. And there's other ones that they've said they've figured out how to sort of like make them personal to you, so it's almost like attached to, it's like a DNA type thing. So if you took it out, it wouldn't work. But there is a big fear about like being hacked, and that you could, in theory, have, you go through I think they do it with cars, don't they? Sometimes they steal the number when you like go boop, and there's a machine that catches the number, and then they can clone your key. So one of the worries is that the bad guys could clone your RFID chip.
Yep.
Wipe yours and then clone it and then steal your identity. So they can steal everything about you.
Yeah, and the more you put on the chip, the more they steal. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this isn't like if I lost my keys, they could steal my car. And this is one thing about making this the appealing aspect of this RFID chip is that it's your wallet, your keys, your ID, all in one.
Yeah, so
but that's the problem.
So if you do have identity theft, you're screwed.
They nick everything.
Everything's gone. Yeah.
And in theory, there'd be no way of proving that you are who you say you are. It's much, much worse than it is now. If somebody steals your ID now, it can be like, well, prove who you are. How? He's stolen my identity. How do I prove who I am?
That's also when the American government classes you as a terrorist under the Patriot Act. That's when you then end up living your life out as an anonymous person in Gitmo Bay with your chip turned off for the rest of your life.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that earlier about the theory of being your chip turned off. I always think about I was brought up a Catholic, so I'm a good God-fearing boy. But one of the things I always loved was excommunication, and that was the ultimate punishment for if you dissed the Catholic Church 500 years ago, you were excommunicated. And the theory being that no Catholic is allowed to help you, so you basically starve to death. If they know you're excommunicated, you go into a shop, they can't serve you, that sort of thing. With this technology, they could literally do that. They could literally excommunicate you. They could literally say, right now, you don't exist anymore. Boop. Or you exist, but we're going to limit what you're allowed to do. You are now only allowed to go in shops for 20 minutes on a Tuesday, and that's it. It won't work other than that.
Yeah.
Just because they want to. Say if this pandemic thing happened again, and they say, right, you're not allowed to go to the shop, they could literally force it on you. They could literally say, your chip will only work for this time once a week.
Yes, the level of control that the government will then have over its population is phenomenal. Yes, I agree.
It's ultimate.
Think
unlimited.
They're going to make us adopt it because it's more convenient for us in many different ways and many different aspects of convenience. The other thing that they're going to do is what they always do when they try and pass new laws that take your freedoms away. They give you a false idea of security from something, which is what they're doing with coronavirus. It's pretty much those two things that are the normal methods they use to try and do this kind of thing. And strangely enough, that's what we're experiencing at the moment. So it does make me question which came first.
Yeah.
The coronavirus outbreak, and are they just not spoiling a good crisis and jumping on the bandwagon with it to get the RFID chip thing going that they've been trying to get going for many years, or
Decades. Yeah.
or did the RFID chip idea come first and they've created a global event in order to try and instill try and move that along?
There will be a database where they will basically track you constantly, and it won't just be through a door. Once 5G is everywhere, they're already talking about the next generation of this technology called smart dust, right? Which isn't really dust. At the moment, the technology is about the size of a matchbox, but they're very, very cheap to make. HP and a couple of HP. No, that's HP Source, isn't it? What's the computer company? Is it HP?
Hewlett Packard.
Hewlett Packard. It is HP. I got it right. So Hewlett Packard on about that they want to make 20 million of these things for one city in America, right? And all it is a little tracking device. And what they'll make money off these things because they only cost pence to make. So and they'll be everywhere. They'll track us, and then they'll use that information. Now, say what they want to get to is a point where there's real world tracking constantly everywhere. And they've said, oh, there's lots of lovely reasons for this. So they'll really be able to help with traffic and making all like the traffic lights smart, and because they'll be able to track everything that's going on all the time. Weather, when it starts to rain in one place, they can divert things. But it'll be real world tracking all the time, right? And that includes real world tracking of people. So if we start crowding in one area, they'll do clever things to get us to walk different places, make the city move much easier, right? If you think about smart dust in combination with 5G, which will give them the signal and the bandwidth ability, and RFID chips implanted in us, and never mind then facial recognition technology, which is coming to a point, it's already in action.
China are already doing that with robots on the street, facial recognition that are taking people's temperatures on the streets.
I mean, what a lot of companies want to do is they want to use all that to then focus advertising at you. So you'll walk past a billboard and you will see an advert for something you want. They won't just put a generic advert up. It'll be a big telly and it'll change constantly. One of the things with Google Glasses they wanted to do was the image is actually projected on the inside of the glasses. So you just see, like those QR code things, they'll be up on a wall, but your glasses sees that and projects some advert for something that it knows you're interested in, right? And so you see the advert, but really everyone sees something different. Okay.
Yep.
With this technology, that takes that to a whole different level, and they can do that constantly. And then, so that's not too bad in a way, but it won't stop there. It'll then start trying to talk you into buying things that it thinks you might want, or it's trying to actually maneuver you in different ways. And we're psychologically stupid enough to fall for it, and we'll become programmed.
Well, it also leads you to the point that I'm thinking of as well, is that we're not really governed by our governments, where our prime minister earns a couple $100,000 a year, or the American president earns $400,000 a year, but he's trying to keep the billionaire CEOs of multinational corporations in check. They're just open to bribery. It costs in America specifically. It costs them, millions of pounds to get into the presidency, to earn
hundreds of millions,
to earn $400,000 a year. Yeah. Well, and who funds all the campaign trails? The corporations. So who are they
These
really
big
serving?
packs
The corporations.
of money. Yeah.
And who wants the RFID chips? The corporations. So we're ruled by a college of corporations in today's world,
Most
rather
definitely.
than governments. And I think that's what's driving it.
But how many scandals have happened? And they say, "Well, I wasn't there." I'm thinking Prince Andrew at the moment. I wasn't with Epstein that night. I was in a Pizza Hut or whatever it was. Pizza Express. Yeah. If we could then go on his chip and just go, "No, you weren't. You were in a room with Jeffrey Epstein and some 13-year-old girl." There's a lot of people that won't want to be tracked all the time.
Oh no.
But that's the thing, is the argument though publicly will be, well, why wouldn't you? Why don't you want to be tracked? What are you doing? What are you doing that's wrong that you don't want to be tracked?
Yes.
Because they already have that argument now with lots of with facial recognition technology and cameras on the streets. People don't like being watched. They go, well, if you're not doing anything wrong,
but why are you worried? But what gives you the right to track and trace what I do?
Yeah, but if you're not doing anything, that
I don't
you don't
care,
need
but
to worry.
what gives you the right to track and trace me? That's my argument back to that. You don't have
Yeah.
a right to do that. So whatever I do is not for you to know, not your business.
In all honesty though, your mobile phone already does almost everything we're talking about. It listens to you, it tracks you, and it tries to manipulate you. So why are these big multinationals trying to push RFID chips on us in the first place?
Now, the thing I have against having the implant is you can't temporarily take the implant out, whereas you can temporarily put your phone in your home and go somewhere in the car without it, and therefore you do still have that ability if you so choose not to be tracked and traced all the time by these multinational corporations that are selling your data left, right, and centre. Whereas if you have an
Most
implant,
definitely, yeah.
you no longer have that choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time.
I just forgot we hadn't really done an outro then. I thought we'd stop, that was all.
Well, there's our outro. So thanks very much. I've never covered an outro before.